Hello, and welcome to Book Circle. I'm Earl Weinberg. This time, we will continue our reading of Summer at Fairacre by Miss Reed. Chapter 17, Off to the Wedding. It was still raining when I dressed the next morning. It was not the violent torrential downpour which the earlier thunderstorm had brought, but a gentle, steady pattering on dry earth and thirsty plants. The air was mild. It was the sort of day the Irish call soft, and it described it well. The downs were veiled in mist, and no doubt the valley of the River Cax, not far from Fairacre, would be just as misty. It seemed strange to see the children arriving in mackintoshes or carrying umbrellas. For weeks the lobby pegs had held only a cardigan or two, or a floppy sun hat. Now raindrops spattered the roof from the dripping mackintoshes, and, true to form, the skylight, so recently renovated, let through an occasional spot of rain near my desktop. This change in the weather seemed to affect the children in a rather peculiar way. I should have thought that cooler conditions would have enlivened them after the oppressive heat, but the reverse happened. Possibly they were physically tired after yesterday's efforts on the sports field. There was a good deal of yawning, and a number of children complained of feeling cold. Those that had woolly jackets in the lobby were sent to get them, and to warm and wake the rest, we did a few brisk exercises. I cannot pretend that these efforts wrought much change, but at least they were galvanized into taking out their arithmetic books and attempting some work in a desultory fashion. At playtime, I compared notes with Miss Briggs as we sipped our coffee. Her class, too, was remarkably soporific, and 3 of the infants had actually fallen asleep. "I think this place is damp," opined Miss Briggs. "It's been that way for over 100 years, I told her, "and unless the stoves are alight or there is a nice long spell of heat such as we've been enjoying, the school never really dries out." "Time we had a new one," said Miss Briggs. "Wayne says this one ought to be pulled down. I'm sure he could build a much better one, and with a proper damp course, too." "I'm sure he could," I agreed, "but with the nation's economy as it is, I can't see our local authority giving him the chance." As well as finding the cash, there is another difficulty which is ever present in my mind at Fairacre School. Our numbers have been perilously low for years, and I cannot help thinking that before long our little school will go the way of so many more in the country. It has always been a worry to me. I hate to see these rural schools closing, and yet what is the practical decision? Parents do not want to see their 5-year-olds carted off by bus for a long day some distance from home. Those who attended the school in their own youth are often fiercely loyal and want it to stay open. On the other hand, when numbers get into the 20s or even lower, are the children getting the competition and stimulus they need? The battle continues. For my own part, the obvious difficulty in my first few years at the school was the fact that my schoolhouse would be taken from me when the whole property was put on the market. I had no doubt that I should be leniently dealt with and probably would be offered first refusal, but it was a problem nonetheless. Now, thanks to Dolly Clare's overwhelming generosity, I need not fear the future. But not many school teachers in the same position have such comfort. "Ah, well," said Miss Briggs, collecting our coffee cups, "only 1 more week and it's end of term." It was a cheerful thought. One evening during the last week of term, Bella George came over to my house after finishing her stint in the school. The air was cool. The really hot sunshine seemed to have deserted us, but I hoped it was only for a few days. We sat indoors, and Tibby, unusually demonstrative, climbed on her lap and settled down, purring loudly. "You're honored," I told her. "Well, I'm not all that fond of cats, actually, and I think they know, so they come and try their luck. Contrary animals, aren't they?" I agreed. "The thing is," went on Bella, stroking the cat, "Jack's shift changes again next month, and I can't see how I can go on with the cleaning indefinitely." "We've been lucky to have you for so long," I replied. "You've been a tower of strength. How long can you stay? Oh, I'll certainly put the place tidy at the end of term, and if need be, I could come in the day before term starts in September just to see things are all shipshape. But I can't do more than that. I'm sorry. I've really enjoyed the work. You've saved our bacon, Bella, I told her. We were really in a desperate plight. I can see I shall have to get in touch with Mrs. Pringle and let her know how things stand. Bella looked embarrassed. I don't know if I should say anything, but she still says she's not going to come back at all. Do you think she's just stringing you along? I wouldn't put it past her. The last she told me was that she intended to come back eventually. When, I don't know, which is why I shall have to advertise in post in order to have someone here regularly for next term. Shall I let her know you are going to do that? I thought for a minute. Mrs. Pringle had certainly got us over a barrel, and knew it, too. On the other hand, I genuinely hoped she might return. Better the knave you know than the devil you don't. Leave it for the moment, I said at last. I shan't be drafting an advertisement until after we've broken up, and she may have come forward by then. What a problem it is. I accompanied Bella to the gate and watched her wobble away down the lane on her bicycle. She had served us nobly in our time of stress. I only hoped that Mrs. Pringle would see fit to take up her duties again with the same dedication. On the last day of term, we had a little ceremony to present Miss Briggs with her wedding gifts and to wish her well. The vicar represented the governors of the school and made a grateful speech, brief and to the point, and the children tried not to fidget as they impatiently awaited the unwrapping of presents. Miss Briggs, flushed with excitement at being the center of the scene, looked almost pretty. She made a grateful speech to the vicar and then set about undoing the largest parcel, which was from the children. I had shown them the tray secretly beforehand and received their commendations. It was an oval one with splendid gilt handles and a garland of wildflowers painted on it. The children approved my choice, and now we awaited Miss Briggs' reaction. It was altogether satisfactory. Her delight seemed genuine, and she thanked the children warmly. They sat beaming and smug, exchanging congratulatory glances. Weren't they clever, they seemed to say. The governors had given her a pretty little traveling clock which folded into a scarlet case, and I had put my gift of a Coalport flower vase with other presents to swell the pile. The girl seemed absolutely delighted with everything, and when the youngest infant staggered from the lobby with a bouquet almost as big as himself, she was speechless with pleasure. After more congratulations from everyone, the vicar said grace, exhorted the children to behave well during the holidays, to help their mothers, and to remember to come back on the 3rd of September. He then shook hands with Miss Briggs and with me and departed. Within 5 minutes, the school was empty, except for Miss Briggs and myself. The girl was busy rewrapping her presents, and when she looked up, I was surprised to see she was very near to tears. It all went beautifully, I said. You gave the children no end of pleasure with such a nice little speech of thanks. Not as much pleasure as they've given me, she responded shakily. And you too. It's a wonderful school. I've been so lucky. She blew her nose energetically, and I bent down tactfully to lock up the cupboards. See you at the wedding, she said, collecting her parcels. I'll give you a ring before then. She still looked Mr. Willett's fair old lump of a girl, I thought, watching her make her way to the car, laden with her bounty, but a very nice one at that. It was a full week before I needed to set off for the wedding, and I employed it by doing some shopping, which included a magnificent hat to wear with my wedding ensemble, and various other less glamorous items, such as grease-proof paper, jam pot covers, a new milk saucepan, and a new doormat. The Swallows had not improved the latter, and it had given me many years of service, so I thought it would be prudent to throw it out at last. I also brought back from Caxley some patterns of curtaining and wondered if I might get around to choosing something suitable to replace the present shabby curtains in the sitting room. When I worked out how many yards I should need and how much they would cost me, even without paying for the making up, pelmets, fringe, lining, tape, and so on, My heart began to sink. Perhaps it would be wiser to wait until I had returned from my holiday. A cousin of mine, recently widowed, had begged me to accompany her for a week in Guernsey in August, and to this I had agreed. We rarely met, as she had married a farmer in Cumbria and been much engaged in bringing up a family of boys, but she sounded so pathetic on the telephone when she broached the possibility of going with her to Guernsey that I was glad to be of some use at this sad time. It was while I was busy leafing through the pattern book and wondering whether it would be worth cashing some national savings certificates to buy the material and to look upon the transaction as a wise investment, or whether I should shelve the whole idea for a time, that Miriam Quinn appeared. "Lovely to see you," I enthused. "It seems ages since we met at Amy's party. What have you been doing?" Of course, I rather hoped that she would say seeing Gerard, but she did not. Miriam is not one for girlish confidences, for which I respect her. Nevertheless, she looked more animated than usual, and I wondered if I should learn more. Or were the village rumors unfounded? They so often are. Holding the fort at the Caxley office, I'm sorry to say, Barney had a business tour in the Middle East, all very high-powered and lucrative, and he left me in charge for 3 weeks. I've hardly had time to breathe. I knew that Miriam was a private secretary to Sir Barnabas Hatch, the financier, and that he recognized the value of this imperturbable and competent young woman. I only hoped that she was suitably rewarded, and I suspect that she was. If anyone should appreciate a sound investment, it was Sir Barnabas, and he certainly had a treasure in Miriam. I showed her the patterns and explained my problem. Should I or shouldn't I? "Let's look at the present ones," she said practically, and we went to study the sitting-room curtains. "I should let them do for another year," said Miriam. "There's nothing wrong with them. Or do you loathe them?" "Far from it, and I'm only too glad to take your advice. My mother used to say that procrastination was my middle name, but in this case the thought of finding 200 or 300 pounds is more telling." "As much as that?" "More, probably. I was not going to decide anyway until after my trip to Leamington and then Guernsey." I told her about my holiday plans, and she said that she was having a fortnight when Barney returned, and proposed to spend it at Norfolk with her brother Lovell and his family. "And later," she said, "I'm having a week or so, probably in the autumn." "That will set you up for the winter," I said. "I really called," said Miriam, rising, "to invite you to a small dinner party I'm giving soon. It's on Thursday week. Can you manage it?" "Damn it, no. I shall be at Leamington then. I'm so sorry. It would have been lovely." "Never mind. There'll be lots of other occasions, and I'll think of you enjoying wedding cake and champagne." She waved goodbye from the gate, and I returned wondering yet again why it is that one can go for weeks without an invitation to something pleasant, and then, when one does arrive, it is the same day as an earlier engagement. Sometimes life seems as contrary as a cat. When I set off for my few days in Leamington, the sun was raining once again, and the weatherman, including Mr. Willett, forecast a return to halcyon days. My spirits were high as I trundled toward Oxford. I had double-checked all switches at home and left Tivy in Mr. Willett's care. He had promised to visit the house night and morning and to see that the cat enjoyed his usual expensive meals. "Not that it hurt him to starve for a few days," he commented. "If that cat don't die of fatty heart, I shall be surprised. Lives like a lord, don't he?" In the back of the car was a suitcase with my everyday clothes and toilet things in it. Another one held my wedding garments. A new cream-colored silk suit was carefully swathed in as much tissue paper as Amy might have used, and my new cream shoes were my pride and joy, surpassed only in my affections by the superb large hat smothered in silk tea roses. Even Amy had been impressed by this confection. "Why, you ought to be the bride yourself in that gorgeous rig-out," was her flattering comment when I displayed my ensemble to her. This was high praise indeed. I am rarely able to impress Amy, least of all with my clothes, and I made the most of it. "Though when I'm going to get a chance to wear this lot again, I'm blowed if I know," I told her. "They'll never date," said Amy comfortingly. "Put them aside for other weddings or even a garden party. You never know. You may need them for your own wedding. But now that Horace Humbleditch has rushed so madly into that quite misguided engagement, I must admit that the outlook seems somewhat bleak." "I'll bear up," I promised. "Of course you might meet someone suitable at the wedding," continued Amy, brightening at the thought. "An uncle, say? Or a grandfather," I put in. "Or some 80-year-old friend of the family creaking along on his last legs." "Yes, indeed," agreed Amy, ignoring my sarcasm. Still, I told myself, as I took the northern bypass skirting Oxford, it was good to have such lovely collections of matching clothes with me, and I resolved to enjoy the occasion thoroughly. I approached Woodstock on the dreaded A34 road and passed the gates of Blenheim Palace, recalling the action of the Duchess Consuelo, of American birth, who had had the good sense to put out the uneaten food from the ducal hall in 2 containers, one savory, the other sweet, for the poor of the town. For years it had all been thrown in together, I gathered, like so much pig swill. My way took me east of Stratford-upon-Avon, but I noticed a sign at Charlecote Park where it is alleged the young William Shakespeare did some poaching, and then on to Royal Leamington Spa. It was early afternoon when I arrived at the hotel, not far from All Saints' Church, where the ceremony was to take place. It was in a quiet street of elegant Georgian houses, and I was glad to be shown to my room to unpack and refresh myself. The next day was free. The wedding was to be the following day, and I spent my time exploring the town. It reminded me of Bath with its graceful terraces, and I did a great deal of window shopping in the parade. I even tried the water in the Royal Pump Room and decided that I should never become an addict. The art gallery and museum was a pleasant haven on a hot afternoon, and I admired some modern paintings and some Wedgwood and Worcester pieces of porcelain, which I coveted. Altogether, I decided I should come again one day. This visit was obviously going to be too short. Our Miss Briggs was a wonder to behold as she came up the aisle on her father's arm, and I wished Mr. Willett could see her now. The Caxley dressmaker had created a beautiful dress of white silk with a short train edged with ruched lace. She carried a Victorian posy of white rosebuds and wore a little matching garland on her head. 2 young friends acted as bridesmaids and were dressed in sprigged voile. The whole effect was youthful and unsophisticated. The Briggs were lucky enough to live in one of the tall Regency houses. We walked straight through to the marquee in the garden where the most sumptuous spread was set out. Wayne, looking handsomer than ever, gave me such an enthusiastic hug and kiss that my gorgeous hat was knocked askew, but it was a small price to pay for such a warm greeting. In any case, by the time the celebrations ended, I was past caring whether my hat was on or off, and by the time I was safely back in my hotel bedroom, all I could think of was the blessed fact that I could sleep as late as I liked, without interruption from anybody, and that I had another 2 days to enjoy the delectable Royal Leamington Spa. Chapter 18. Away from it all. The sun was setting when I returned to Fairacre. I stopped at Mr. Willett's to pick up the key and to thank him for feeding Tibby. "That cat of yourn don't grieve you know when you ain't at home, so don't go thinking you're missed at all." I suspected as much. "Golloped down best part of a half-pint of milk and polished off 2 saucers full of grub a day, just like them cats on the telly. Which reminds me, we're on tomorrow." "On what?" "The telly. Us. Fairacre. Tyler's Row. Wishes. The lot. About 6:15. "Marvelous." He walked to the car with me. As always, his garden was a picture. "Alice will be sorry to have missed you. She's over at Springbourne with her cousin Aggie on some chapel lark." "I hope I haven't stopped you from going too." No, it's one of these temperance meetings. Aggie's a great one for abstaining. Well, so are we, as you know, but old Ag's a bit fiercer, if you follow me, and she got this chap from the other side of Caxley to cycle out to give a talk on the evils of strong liquor." "Well, I hope he gets a drink of some sort," I said, "if he's cycling all that way on a hot evening." Oh, he'll get his cup of tea and a Marie biscuit, no doubt. Maybe a rich tea if they start living it up. I think Aggie was afraid there wouldn't be many attendants, seeing as it's August, and most people are busy gardening or away on holiday. That's why Alice has gone to swell the numbers. Rather her than me. Driving home, I pondered on Mrs. Willett's outing. It didn't sound like a chapel lark to me. Tibby ignored my blandishments when we met and gazed haughtily into the distance. That would teach me to neglect a cat. Well, we'll find out if she and Tibby patch things up next time.